Hello, wanted to give you a demonstration of how to work with the style tile template provided for you in Figma for this course. This document is meant to help us make some organized decisions around the different styles that we will use for our project. So this is not meant to be a layout sheet or anything that is going to actually show what our actual web pages are going to be, how they're going to be structured, but it will prescribe some things like colors and fonts and imagery so that we can see how all of those things look and work together. Okay, so one thing that I find helpful is to go ahead and put our imagery in first. Now in Figma, this is a matter of finding the images that we want, and then we can drag them right onto the canvas and work with them. So I'm going to work with this one first. Now, it's way too big. You can scroll in, zoom in and out by holding the Control or Command key and scrolling on your mouse. You can also use the zoom drop down that's up here. But you can see it's way bigger than we need it to be. We actually want them to generally fit into this little size down here. So you can see that is, roughly 230 pixels wide by 140 pixels high. Okay, so I'm going to start by going ahead and just downsizing this, okay? So notice that as I do that, Figma allows me to both to basically change the size of the frame that is showing this image. So it's already doing some automatic cropping for us and keeping the image at its original aspect ratio. This is super duper helpful. It means that you're not going to accidentally stretch your image like you might in other design software. So I'm going to actually bring this in, place it generally on top of that shape, and then resize my image until it sort of snaps into place there. And I'm just going to zoom in and make sure that it's not showing any of that border, and then find that original border. Here it is, and go ahead and get rid of it. Okay, so that was super easy. So all I need to do is just repeat that process to drag in the other two images that I have, and they should be similarly easy to get in place. So I'm going to start this one with its corner in the right spot. I'm going to zoom out so I can see the other corner and then just drag it in. Okay, now the other image is way over here. So let's bring it over similarly, place it about where I need it, and then begin resizing. If you've done any work with resizing images, I hope that you're a little bit blown away by how easy this is to do without actually affecting your aspect ratio. Super nice. Okay, so that's close enough. For style tiles, I don't want to necessarily try to be perfect with everything. This is just a style mock-up to show my customers. Okay, so now with those images in place, I can get a sense of the kind of color palette that I might want to work with, at least if I'm going to try to choose colors that are harmonious with my layout. So I'm seeing a lot of this like beautiful, deep, I should say bright sea color. So I'm going to take this starter color that I have here and adjust it. So what I did there was I hovered over this element that you can see is called component 1 over in the sidebar. And if I hold the Command or Control key and click, it allowed me to click in on the actual swatch panel. If you just click on the component itself, you get the whole component, which is actually interesting because it shows you the colors that are used here. So you can actually come in and modify this color. So let's say I wanted to go towards the that bright, maybe I want a little bit more green in there, something like that. I can actually modify it out at this level, which is also super helpful. But if I want to get directly onto that actual shape, I have to hold Command Control to click on it, or I can find it over here in the panel, and then you can see I get a slightly different control here to go and choose that. I can also use this eyedropper color to go find actual sample actual pixel colors, and this leads to some varying effects. You can usually get in the ballpark of what you're looking for and then adjust in this panel from there. Okay, notice that you also have the option to change to different color modes. I often find that hue, saturation, and brightness is a helpful mode to work in myself. But the hex color is what we're actually going to use on the web, so it's nice to keep that there. Okay, so maybe I'm also going to choose as one of my other colors, I'm going to choose like an orange. So I want to choose a color that's going to pop off the page enough so that there's plenty of contrast, and I'm liking what I'm seeing even with that hue right there. All right, so those are my primary and my secondary colors that I might use for coloring like my brand or coloring aspects of my headings and different things like that. But it's usually also nice to make sure that you have a nice popping accent color that you can use for hyperlinks if one of these two doesn't work. In this case, I may actually use my primary color for hyperlinks, one of these slightly darker tints down here or shades. So with this one, I want to think about something that will actually, I really do kind of like that blue. Maybe I would use this one for my hyperlinks. It's similar enough to a standard blue, and I'm seeing it, but I do want to make sure that it's distinguished enough from this other one. So I think I'm going to just nudge it a little bit more towards the brighter blue there, a little bit more away from the green, and then I think I'm happy with that one. Now for body copy, this is a good one to typically use a gray. But the thing I wanted to call out here is that just because we select a main color up on this main swatch doesn't mean that that has to be the color that we actually use. It may be that we use some of the darker things more often. So what I want to do is just make sure that I have enough options variation down here. Like right now, these look really similar to each other. So I'm going to just try to get something more middle. You see, as I nudge this up towards the middle, we'll begin to see more difference between these down here. So I think I might just try to choose a mid-tone value like that, and that gives me more options down here. So I may actually end up using this particular variation down here, but now I've got more options to work with in there. All right, now these others are optional colors that you can remove if you're not going to use, and I recommend typically these four, where you have a primary, a secondary, an accent, and a body color. And those can be anything you want, but we do want to make sure that they're each distinct from each other, knowing that we can always go in and use any variations down in here to add additional variety in our mockups. So with that said, I'm going to actually just delete these two and keep this nice and simple. So there we have images, we have colors selected that complement those images. Now finally, let's talk about fonts. In Figma, when you click on these elements, you have all kinds of fonts at your fingertips to work from, but I strongly recommend that you first go and look on the fonts.google.com to make sure that you're choosing fonts that are going to be easy for you to use in your actual web mockup. So you can browse around here and find all kinds of different fonts that you'd like, searching in many different ways. I was looking earlier and I really liked the rounded look of this Baluchetan 2, so I'm going to add that to a collection. You see this little window popped up and there's Baluchetan 2. Very good. I also like the look of the IBM Plex font families, and I wanted the serif version, so I'm going to add that into my collection. Okay, now there are other videos that talk about how you can use the CSS aspects here, but if I want to use this on my Figma file, I need to download this collection. So this has gone to my downloads folder. You who are PC users will need to find where that went on your own PC. But now we have these fonts that we can install. On a Mac, you can use the Font Book application to install these. And all you need to do is drag these folders over into here. And I imagine there's also something very similar on a PC for you PC users. Okay, so now those fonts are installed, and I should have access to them here in Figma. If I don't, it may just mean I need to restart Figma. So let's see, did they come in right away? Looks like it. Okay, so there's my font set in there, and what I'm going to do now is just add the different settings that I want in order to make this look the way that I'd like. So I kind of want my headings to be boldish, so I'm going to go ahead and select the Baluchetan for these. Oops, we want Baluchetan 2. And I can choose the weights that I want, because I want each heading to kind of look like a similar, have a similar thickness to them, but even though they get smaller as we go down, I want them to kind of still feel like they're the same thickness. All right, and then these are all looking like my body copy. So for this, I'm going to use the IBM Plex serif. And I think that 14 points is probably fine here. Now notice that it moved things around, and I want to kind of get it back lined up. And as I do, I may find that I need to resize or move some things around a little bit. See, now I'm pushing to the bottom of my canvas. So in Figma, you can easily extend a canvas because we're simulating things for the web. It's very important to know that we need to make things flex from a top to bottom perspective like we do on the web. So it's very easy to change the size of a canvas just by clicking on that canvas. In Figma, it's actually called a frame, but you can just click on the frame and then drag it down like that and easily get more space. Okay, so I'm just gonna nudge things around to line them up a little bit better. This is just me being picky. But Figma provides these nice guides for doing things like that, doesn't it? Okay, so if we just continue to resize and round and just give our things some space again, keep in mind that what we're also trying to simulate here is the way our content will actually be spaced. So I'm going to think about the space between these lines here and simulate that amount of space. Okay, now back to my body copy. I think that if I go to zoom 100%, I can get a sense of how large or small this type is going to be. And I think I want to make it a few clicks larger. So I'm going to go up to 16 to make sure it's nice and readable on the web. In fact, I'm going to move these other things out of the way so that I have a little bit more room to play. Oops, I didn't think that was going to move with it. So let's try that. Okay, so now that I have more room to play, I want to make sure to switch this text mode. So these controls here have to do with how the box itself changes. So this is probably the default setting that you'll find. It's auto width. It basically means that this box is going to keep getting bigger and wider and wider and wider as long as the text needs it to be. You can see it was before it was on this fixed size option, which means you can see this blue box is causing the text to kind of overflow out of it. I really find that this middle option is a nice one for text like this. Because what it allows you to do is to set a fixed width on the box, but if you just leave the height alone, it will automatically grow with your type. Okay, so I set my font size. Now I want to tweak my leading. Oops, that's not leading, that's the space after paragraph, so I'll come back to that. Here we have leading, where I realize that I want a little bit more breathing room between my lines. I'm going to have this aligned to the top of my text box as well. And I'm liking the look of that. It's got a little bit more breathing room. Just to keep it even, I'm going to just nudge down to 25. Now that I have my leading adjusted, I want to think about how much space I want between blocks. So this is a hard return inside of my paragraph like that. So that's the amount of space that I get by default when I have a hard return like that. So I'm going to just nudge this value up and down to play around with that. And it looks like that the 12 pixel zone there is really nice for what I want. It's just enough to tell the difference without feeling like a whole, extra line return. Okay, so now I have some settings that I like. So regular, 16, 25, and 12. And I'm going to bring those down to my the list items down here. And I'm going to change my settings so that we're mimicking the same idea. Now with bullets, this is one downside of a lot of the web design tools today. We haven't quite caught up with some of our traditional print tools in terms of how to lay out bullets. On one hand, they do have the option to set a paragraph indent value. So if I come here and set a negative value, well, it actually won't let me set a negative value, will it? So scratch that, we can't do that option. So here's what I've often done in these softwares, is I actually take out the bullets, or no, I'll take that back. I'm going to duplicate this. So I duplicated that, by the way, by clicking on the box and then holding the Option or Alt key, I click and drag to create a duplicate, and then I let go of the mouse cursor before I let go of the box. Okay, so here I have my bullets. And I'm going to just remove everything except for the bullets themselves from this box. Okay. All right, now I need to simulate the space, so I'm going to switch back to this mode where it's only as wide as the text needs it to be. Okay, and I'm going to bring it over here and align it with the top of the other box. Okay, so every bullet is lining up except for this one, because it just has one hard return after it between those two bullets. So if I go up to this previous bullet and hold the shift key as I press return, I get soft returns that simulate the empty lines between that bullet and here. So a hard return is just pressing the return key, whereas a soft return is when you press shift and return, and that simulates the actual soft line breaks and allows me to simulate the same spacing there. All right, so now I have all of my bullets set up, and I'm just now going to pull them out of my other document or other box here, and that allows me to control the size and offset of this independent from my bullets and simulate the kind of spacing that I want there. So that may be a better plan than what we had at the beginning. Last of all, I'm going to nudge all these up to simulate the proximity to the previous line so I can see where that would sit, and I want it to really look similar to what I had up there. All right, last of all, I'm going to set up this hyperlink color, and so we're going to simulate the spacing similarly again, but we do want to also get those same type settings. So 1625, actually just 16 would do here to get the right size. Oh, I guess that the line height of 25 is helpful too. Okay. All right. Now I just want to use an actual color from my color system. So with that box selected, I'm going to move up so that I can see those color panels, and then hold, click on this, click on the sampling icon, and then go sample. So I think I'm actually going to go with that blue, and that provides a nice bit of contrast there. Okay, so I've got my type set up. Next of all, I'm just going to evaluate, do I like the level of hierarchy? So on one hand, I like to see that there's enough contrast between each level, and so that they don't look too similar. And this looks really good, but I think I might just nudge this one up a few clicks, and then this one up a few clicks more, just to provide a little bit more boldness and distinction between the two. Okay, and now that I've done that, I think I'm going to generally want more space everywhere here. So I'm going to grab these and nudge them down a little bit. And then this, I don't mind being close to there, but I'm going to want a lot more space above and between the different layers like that. Okay. All right, so you've now seen a demonstration of how to edit each of the different pieces here. Last of all, you can go in here and edit the name of the project here to match what you're actually doing for your site. And now you have something you can show your customers and your professor to get a sense of the look and feel you might use for your site. In many projects we do in our web courses, we also have you do several of these so that you can show several different directions. So in that case, if you hold the Alt or Option key and hold over one of these artboards and then click and drag, you can create a duplicate of that very quickly and then just go through and change things out. So you might go as far as to, oh, it looks like it didn't have my image in there, actually use different images, choose different colors, and choose different fonts. So even along a beach theme, there is a different direction we could go with this. I chose images that really were aligned on this kind of a color scheme, but there's certainly different ways you could go, maybe more towards the like evening, sunset type look where you have a lot more of the oranges and pinks in the sky. You could go with a distinctly sand and coastline look where you might have more of the rocks and like palm trees or things like that. So it may bring a totally different color scheme in. And that's what we're looking for when we do variations in style tiles, is to do something completely different. So thinking of that like coastline type look, I might have a bright green. I might go with the orange here. I might go much more into the like brown zone. So something like this. And then maybe my water is even going to be a little bit more subdued into like the sea green type look. Maybe we do want to keep in a bluish like that. Okay, so this kind of contrast is what we'd be looking for, and you'd use different images and different fonts too. That kind of contrast is what we'd be looking for in two different style tiles or more. All right, hope this is helpful, and I look forward to seeing your work.